we're redefining third time's a charm. It's second time's a charm.
Right.
You and I have tried to have this conversation previously. I had some tech issues. It was my first day of new setup, and I was so, I'm not going to say embarrassed. I just really appreciated your compassion, which I mean, just shows that you walk your talk. So we'll dive right into Stoic empathy. Um, and I just really appreciate you. So thank you for being here.
It's my absolute pleasure, honestly. As I stated before you hit record, Heather, and I'll let the audience know, it's just such a pleasure to be on this show and to be talking to Heather. And she's so interesting. And actually, our last conversation, I hope we can duplicate it for you guys because it was pretty amazing. I think we're gonna at the end of this, we're gonna have to rank whether this was as good, better, or worse than the one the audience gets to hear.
I think it's going to be better. And I had the opportunity to, I think it just also cultivates and creates connection, like the humanness, right? Like exposure with,
Yeah.
and I want to dive into that, like between connection and empathy and leadership and stoicism and your story. But why that is so important. And I don't know about you, but I'm sure these conversations are coming up. I've been about AI
Yeah.
and how AI is, everyone's like, oh, I'll just run it through ChatGPT or I'll do this or I'll do that. And it's like, don't forget your humanness. But one thing that I believe that is never going to go away is the human connection and those what we quote as soft skills.
Yeah.
So I would love to just dive right into that.
Let's
The work that you're doing, the work you're seeing in the world, and like my belief is why this is needed and so timely now more than ever. So, yeah, I'm going to give you the microphone just for a moment.
Well, awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to dive right in. In fact, it's so interesting that you started with this question, Heather, because I recently gave a talk at a leadership conference in New York for Brookfield Properties and Brookfield Investments. And their whole conference was about AI and the changes that AI is creating to their industry. And my keynote was with respect to the utilization of Stoic empathy to hang on to that humanness in the age of AI, and how that is not just the one thing that no one will ever take away from us, but it's also the one thing we will always want that nothing else can provide. And since it was a leadership conference, it was an opportunity to be speaking with these incredible leaders of influence. Every person in the room had 200 people working for them at least, right? And so to be able to address these individuals on the significance of that human connection now more than ever, as you said, that's not something you can run through ChatGPT. And so I'm very attuned to that. And it is the core of our humanity, our ability to connect with and understand others. And one of the things I actually read about in the book is and by the way, y'all, most of this is in chapter 6. So if you want to skip the science, you can. You don't have to read it. But I write about the science of this, of the mirror neuron system in our brains and how it is that we experience the emotions of others. And then also when you're in the position of a leader, obviously you can't allow yourself to become overwhelmed by those feelings because you still have to manage your employees. You still have to run your business. You still have to watch out for all of your stakeholders, including your shareholders. And so that's where the control and the stoicism comes in. So it's been a fascinating topic of late to delve into, and there's a lot to say there.
Yeah. There was something I was reading about. It was regarding your book around, and it brought up for me when people are like, I am an empath or I'm a very empathetic person and I begin to take on the energy of others or the world. And it was like emotional empathy versus cognitive. Is that how you define it?
Yes, 100%. And I would love to take credit for that, but I can't. That is just in the field of psychology, it's sort of the bare bone minimum division between different forms of empathy is that these two key different forms. There's emotional empathy, which is your pain in my heart, which, Heather, is the ouch you feel in your heart when your child falls off their bike and skins their knee, right? You actually, you recoil a little bit. So it's because you feel that pain in your body. But cognitive empathy is very different than that. It's more the experience you have as the urgent care provider working to x-ray the potentially broken bone of the mother who came in with her child, right, who fell off the bike. And so it's more of a, I have an ethic of care. I understand what it is you're going through. I need to actually, I need to understand your pain. I need to understand where it hurts, how it happened, what the impact of it is, how it feels, even the type of pain I need to understand. But I don't feel it myself. My job is to heal you. And I can't do this job if I am in a state. And then, like, obviously expand from child with, maybe a broken bone to child who's been severely hurt, maybe by a loved one. And you're their healthcare provider versus another loved one, right? And so these distinctions are very, very important. And depending on your role within that particular situation, one or the other, and some combination of the two is what is appropriate. And so really what we have to remember is it's not a dichotomy. It's not emotional or cognitive, right? It's a spectrum of emotional to cognitive. And you're going to fall somewhere along this spectrum. And what's really cool is what Stoic empathy teaches you, which is that we can actually control where in this spectrum, to a large extent, where in the spectrum we fall, so that we can be the person we want to be in that particular situation.
So there's a few things based on what you just said that I see come up a lot in the work that I do. Number one, women, because I primarily work with women, not even identifying as leaders.
Yeah.
That like they don't have a leadership role. And then the spectrum of, I'm constantly getting asked, how do I not let the energy of others affect me? How do I not let the energy of the world affect me? Like I'm just absorbing it like a sponge, to the complete opposite side of that, where people are incredibly cognitive and playing a role and saying a script of like, this is how to be empathetic.
Right.
And like you said, it's a spectrum. So how do you balance that, whether you are talking or doing a keynote in a corporate setting versus talking to a group of women who are like, I'm burnt to a crisp. And because, I'm on social media and I'm taking on the energy of the world, everything is just way too much for me. Like, how do you balance those conversations? Because there's a scale of situations, if that makes sense.
So really, it's spot on, right? I mean, you're hitting the dilemma exactly where it exists. And here's the truth of the situation. The truth of the situation is that both of those extremes can be a form of weakness. If we allow ourselves to become slaves to the external world and allow the external world to control us in every possible way, that is a weakness. But at the same time, if we're so terrified of experiencing the external world, including its sorrows, fears, anxieties, angers, whatever it might be, that we shut ourselves down from it like a computer with a off switch that has been hit and just, if you're so afraid of experiencing the external world that you shut yourself off completely, that is also a weakness. So the answer really lies in, how do I allow my emotions to inform me, not become my master? How do I allow them to be a part of me, but I'm the person in charge and they're there with me. They're accompanying me, right? And they inform me. Anger can be really great. Fear can save your life. We developed fear because saber-toothed tiger was running toward us. And if we didn't get scared of the saber-toothed tiger, it would eat us. So you're going to get eaten by the tiger. If you're not scared of it, you should be scared of it. But if it's scaring you to the point of freezing you so that you do become, perfect prey for that tiger, that is an unhealthy, that is the fear controlling you instead of the fear informing you, this is a dangerous situation. What can I do to exit out of this situation? And then you utilize your self-control. So really it's about understanding where the emotion ends, where you begin, how much of that is in your control and how much of that isn't, and exercising, gaining that control over the course of time, such that with time you become wiser. You're less likely to look back at a conversation you had yesterday and think, I should have said this, I should have done that, I wish I'd said this, right? and actually reacting in the moment with a response that you think is appropriate.
So everyone wants to know the how, right? Like taking the theory or the concept and then implementing it into the practical. So as I'm talking to you, I can understand the edge. I can understand,
Yeah.
like, okay, this ends here for me. Like I need to have a boundary with my fear. Like this, there is, or emotion. Um, but then what happens when people look at you and they're like, well, what's the practicality of this? Like, how do I
Right.
begin to know when I'm taking on too much, when I'm absorbing this too much versus I need to like disassociate a little bit?
Sure. So, what's really interesting about your perspective and where you're coming from, because your audience is a largely emotionally empathetic audience, you're coming from how do we gain control perspective. I'll tell you, a lot of the shows I go on and a lot of the
Yeah.
leadership
They're like,
topics, they're
how do I feel?
they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
how do I feel it? So do keep in mind, my book is a how to on both, and I think understanding the other, even if it's something you're really good at, is really important. So you might
Mhm.
already have this down, but the part of the book that is all about understanding how the people around you relate, but also dividing up the notion of understanding versus the notion of feeling is really helpful in getting into the second part, which is the Stoicism, which is really an ancient philosophy on emotional regulation. And it's
Mm.
not, it's, you see remnants of this throughout Buddhism, throughout various religions and faiths, throughout modern cognitive behavioral therapy. And really at the core of this is a philosophical notion, but everything else is a tool. Everything
Mm.
else is a how to. The philosophical notion is the duality of control. There are some things in my control and some things out of my control. Now, the how to is how do I isolate what is in my control and then exercise control over it, right? And maybe even expand that sphere. So when you turn to specifically that question, right, the answer to that question honestly lies in these ancient forms of Stoic exercise. One of those exercises is one that I love dearly, and it is called embracing discomfort. The idea with embracing discomfort is to put yourself in uncomfortable situations intentionally that are safe. You're not going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. You
Yeah.
just might have to pay extra for your shot of vanilla at the Starbucks, right? So you're putting yourself in these situations that you find uncomfortable, whatever your weakness is, and practicing living in that space. It's like practicing with running through the pain. It's literally like practicing with chronic pain. And
Mm.
therein, through that practice, you learn how to expand the space between stimuli and response. And once you've expanded that space, you can insert yourself, you can perform a cognitive analysis of what you can do and what you can't. Do what you
Yeah.
can and forget the rest. So that's one of the things we teach. Another one of the tools we teach that really helps you cope with it sounds really dark and really morbid, but it's called memento mori, and it's called remember you will die. And
Yeah.
really what memento mori means is remember you're not dead yet. And this allows you this remembrance. A lot of Stoics carry a memento mori coin or a ring. I have a ring on my finger around their body or their bodice, or they have some kind of token or something to remind them this existence is impermanent. And the weight I assign to this situation should be appropriately assigned, given
Mm.
that I could die at any minute and that I am alive right now, right? And so there's a lot of tools and exercises. There's multiple meditations to help you exercise this. And then I have some super practical exercises for folks too of just, hey, I suggest this hobby if this is your trouble. If this one's your
Mm.
trouble, I suggest this exercise. And so because different people are uncomfortable with different things. And so I try to sort of catch as many people as I can under those umbrellas.
Okay, so I'm going to give you some circumstances. Would you like give tips
Okay.
for those types of people?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. So let's say you identify as a highly empathetic person. You've poured your life into your children, into your family, and
Mhm.
you have a desire to either grow or scale your business or, make your first dollar. And there's something that's like eating at you. And yet, every single time you go to put that on the calendar or you try to focus on something, you feel like your children are pulling you in or somebody needs you. What would you say
Mhm.
to that person?
Mm. Okay. Well, so I love this question. I love the complexity of the question, and I think it's really important. First of all, I will say I am in grief right now. We lost a member of the family recently, a very close member, my brother-in-law, who was like a brother to me. I carried the casket. I was one of the pallbearers. I mean, it's
Mm,
very, very difficult situation. Sometimes your children do need you, and that is more important than growing the business. And the
yeah.
wisdom to know that is part of your strength, right? So the fact that you got pulled into your children in and of itself does not make you weak, and it does not make the act wrong, right? The challenge is when we mix up what seems urgent from what seems important, right?
Mm,
So at the end of the day, long term, right, I still have to provide for these children, right? I still need a financially stable life. They are my primary responsibility. But I
yeah.
also need joy in my life. I need success in my life. I need to be a good example to them. I need to be the person who I want to be. And God bless you if that person is, I want to be a full time mom. And God also
Yeah.
bless you if that person is, I want to be a mom who's available to her children, but also has a professional career. And you
Mhm.
know what? The reality is, if you are able to cognitively evaluate what matters and what doesn't, to create your task list, and then forgive yourself for the situations that are emergencies. The reality is, I'll tell you, my own mom should have been a surgeon. She's not. She became a carpet salesman because that's what she had to do under the circumstances. But she
Mhm.
found leadership, she found feminism, she found financial independence. She eventually made it to assistant manager and then store manager. She made
Mhm.
a life for herself, and her potential was significantly higher, but not under the circumstances of her life. There's a woman right now giving birth to a baby on a dirt floor of a tent in a refugee camp. People do have limitations in their life. That is a reality. And the one thing that is always yours, that nobody can ever control, is how you respond to those
Mm,
limitations, to those pushes, to those pulls, how you display character in those moments of intensity and the choices that you make. And instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I had done this differently yesterday, you think, I did this yesterday. Here's how I could do it better today. And
yeah.
that's it. And you just go forward because you're not dead yet. You're still here. And so you have a
Mhm.
chance to do it differently. And what happened to you yesterday and the mistakes that you made and even the tragedies that you endured, they're not good. They're not good things. It's not good that they happened to you. However, they can be an additional building block on your Legoland structure of yourself, right? Speaking as a mother. And that
Mhm.
block could be the key that you need to reaching new heights. They can help you become wiser, better, and deeper. So reflect on those mistakes in that way. It's not good that I made that mistake, or it's not good that this horrible thing happened to me, or this person took advantage of me. I'm not saying it is. Here's, however, what I learned from it. Here's how I grew from it. Here's how I'll behave differently in the future. Here's how I'll maintain my integrity while behaving differently in the future. Here's how
Yeah.
I will prioritize between my work, my kids, and my body, which, by the way, matters just as much as those two. You guys, it matters just as much. Your body, your health, your mental and physical health is just as important as your work, and it's just as important as really anything else in your life. And so
Yeah.
here's how I'm going to balance that and try to create that going forward.
Okay. I was going to ask you the other end of the spectrum
Uh-huh.
where that person doesn't feel like they're getting pulled in. But as you were talking, where they need to be a little more empathetic, as you were talking, what came up for me is, what is happening like below the surface for every human. Like one of the things that I really love and enjoy doing is having diverse conversations. And what I mean by that is not having the same type of people in the room who are doing the same thing, and how we can learn and grow from being in relationship or in proximity to people that are the complete opposite of
Yeah.
us.
Okay.
And I just had this conversation with a woman the other day because she was coming to an event, and I said, what do you want to experience? And what she wanted to
Yeah.
experience, in my perspective, because this was through my lens, was surface level. And I said, oh, you're going to come and we're going like 5 layers deeper than that. I said, but we're all here as a soul having a human experience. And we have to kind of strip away the titles and the layers and all the crap that's on top. And it is more of a yes and, right? It's not like, here's the tool for you, here's the tool for you. It's like, what is this deep inner wisdom and knowing? Um, so yeah, I'm curious, like anything that you want to say, either for the person that's the opposite, where they're just like checking the boxes, doing the thing, and those doors are all closed. And I'm also curious if you are open to vulnerably sharing, and we don't have to go there, of like how you are showing up to this conversation right now, being in grief and also having ambition and a vision and a mission for your work, while also experiencing that incredible loss. Because I do believe that is the balancing act, but
Yeah.
the B word is a little bit of bullshit. So yeah,
Yeah.
anything you want to say
Yeah.
about that?
It's more of a juggle than a balance, right? It's more of a,
Yeah.
how many balls can I keep in the air at any given time? And then how many balls do I need to put down for a while so that I can keep focus on the ones that are up in the air, because I cannot drop them. And so, okay, so this is a great question, because the person you're describing, in terms of the person on the other end of the spectrum who maybe has some difficulty with emotional connection, understanding, or staying in contact with that side of themselves, is my husband. That is the man I married, right? He's a good person. He is a very good person. He's not a bad person, but he is not someone who can easily connect even with his own emotions, much less those of other people. We joke around that his default emotions are frustration and anger. That's it. Like every once in a while he laughs, but there's really nothing in between. And I'm like, there's a whole spectrum. One time I showed him an emotional wheel and there was something like 500 emotions, and he was like, what? And so here's what I would say: find the thing you're uncomfortable with. And if you're the spouse of that person, find a way to empathize with that. So here's
Mhm.
what we do. My husband, who is a very, very good person, is very uncomfortable being made vulnerable. And situations that make him feel vulnerable, are always emotional. And they often involve interfacing with people who are facing tremendous difficulty. It makes him uncomfortable to be face to face with a single mom who's being abused by her husband, say. So,
Mhm.
I mean, who doesn't feel horrible in a situation like that? But some people, they immediately become the empath. They immediately become the caretaker. They immediately know how to touch or not touch this particular individual, how to take care of them. Let's say you're the volunteer at the shelter, right?
Yeah.
And that night, all you have to do is cook and put a meal in front of the moms and their children. But you also maybe want to bring some toys, and maybe you want to play with the kids, and maybe you want to engage the people in some conversation. But you, especially if you're a man, you want to keep your respectful distance given their trauma. How do you do that? That makes him I mean, it's extreme. He can't even tell me I look pretty when I dress up. So for
Yeah.
him, that level of uncomfortability is massive. And yet, look, he's intentionally put himself in a situation that makes him uncomfortable, that is a good thing for him to do, that is in line with his notions of value and integrity, not my notions, but his notions, right? And if he does it enough, I promise
Mm.
you, he becomes better at it. And then by extension, everything else. Likewise, what I can do is I actually started doing, and I'm not necessarily recommending this to your clients, but I started doing some street fighting and hand-to-hand combat, because
Interesting.
I wanted to know, what's it like to get punched in the face How discombobulating is it? At one point, do I kind of get used to it? And therefore, I'm able to keep my wits about me. And then I was able to talk to him about his experience at the shelter being similar to my experience getting punched in the face. We both get very discombobulated. And suddenly we start doing and saying things that we are less in control of. And it's like, how do you exposure, training, right? That is how you gain that comfort level, and that is how you move forward. So once you have identified what your area of discomfort or discomforts is or are, right? Often it's plural. I'm often moving on to something else when I think that I feel comfortable with this one. I'm going to move on to this one. And then you start practicing those and devising a way. So if your area of discomfort, say, is confrontation, right? Maybe what you do, you don't have to get in a ring and punch someone out. Maybe what you do is, and I brought up Starbucks earlier, is you can negotiate with the barista at the Starbucks to get a free shot of vanilla. You're like, hey, you think you could put in a free shot of vanilla for me today? It's like 75 cents. Come on, you can do it. I've had a bad day. You can make me feel better. And you can engage in that confrontation. It doesn't hurt anyone. And you can leave the barista $1 tip, So you're not even making money on the transaction. All you're doing is engaging in the skill set that makes you uncomfortable in a manner that is safe, where you really don't have very much to lose at all. And you get that practice in, and then you take that approach to the next level, and you realize the skills you do have are an asset. I love Heather's yes and. Yes, I'm really good at these things. That's awesome, man. I want to improve in these things. So I'm going to yes and myself and who I am as a person, and just identify and strengthen like you would with a muscle set at the gym. Identify and strengthen. Where are the weak points? How do I strengthen them? You can read books like mine to help you with the how-to. You can talk to Heather to help you with the how-to, right? Get coaching from her, or seek another form of assistance to move on with the how-to. But be careful. You are a pivotal driver in how you isolate your weakness, how you define it, and how you move forward. And any assistance you get from a coach or a how-to book or otherwise is simply that. You're the athlete. You're the star. You are the main character of your existence. So you get to decide the next step.
It is very interesting that, like, as I'm hearing you, I'm observing how I give myself little challenges, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Therefore I'm going to do that. Like, and I just watch the feeling or the interaction that I have, and then watching the story that I tell myself and the defensive-ness around that story of like, I can't do that. Like how much I'm trying to, you get to keep what you defend versus like, ooh, I think there's opportunity there. And maybe that action or the challenge you give yourself has no perceived correlation to the outcome, right? Like, right. How is getting punched in the face going to benefit your marriage? How's that going to benefit you at work? Like, perceived, it doesn't. But the reality is it does, because you are making yourself emotionally uncomfortable and pushing your edges.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot with the women that I work with, whether it's the ones that are over empathizing, taking everyone's shit on. And I'm like, you need to have boundaries with your empathy. You need to have emotional boundaries. Like, what makes you uncomfortable? Actually putting some time aside, and versus the other side of the spectrum. So there's no perfect answer for anyone. It's like, what's your edge? What's uncomfortable? And pushing yourself there.
100%. As long as the discomfort creating activity you're engaging in is one that is overall healthy and aligns with your value system. So if it involves, learning self-defense, that's fantastic. That's great. If you love to run, and a runner's high and meditation is how you experience that pure joy of euphoric feeling in your life on a daily basis, and you just need to learn how to keep running through that pain of the 3rd mile or the 10th mile or the whatever that mile marker is for you, then that's it. If it is the ice baths and you've done the research and you know all about their incredibly positive impacts on your nervous system, then that is it. But I'm not saying, go try things just because you're afraid of them if they harm you, right? There's lots of things that we're afraid of because they're actually not good for us. So try to perform in a cognitive evaluation and find something that fits your level of comfort, right? If you're afraid of heights, you don't need to go to the Empire State Building. Maybe just try a set of stairs first, right? This is called habituation. And then try 2 stories and then 3 stories and slowly habituate yourself to a place where you're still in the realm of positive. This is good for you. This aligns with your value system, but you're not throwing yourself out there, right? If, on the other hand, you feel you're ready for it, God bless you, jump out of an airplane, go for it. And so if that's something that you need today to feel alive and to align your value system for you, go for it. It's not really going to hurt you, and it doesn't hurt you in any meaningful way, emotionally either. And so that's really the trick, is to really think of it as, and I love, Heather, that you do this already, but I bet you've never done it with like meth, right? Or heroin. I don't want to try meth, but I'm going.
No, not really.
This is not the recommendation. The recommendation is, I am very uncomfortable. I experience discomfort on a regular basis. So I'm going to put myself in situations that are good for me, like an ice bath, like a long run, like a sparring session, or like a volunteer session. And I am going to get used to living in that feeling of discomfort, right? And if I can find a way of tying the discomfort to the actual thing, the actual activity I'm engaged in, great. If not, I'll just become better at handling that discomfort. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, though, that if you're the kind of person who has a hard time being emotionally vulnerable, learning to push past the physical pain might not get you past that. You need to actually make yourself emotionally uncomfortable, not just physically.
Ooh, can we go there for a second? So here's the funny thing. I'm all about emotional discomfort, kind of like spiritual discomfort, in the sense of like desires and like really feeding your soul, like what makes you come alive. And I have been talking to a lot of physical transformation groups and like fitness, and they're like, on the outside, they got the muscles, they got everything, they got the discipline, everything's dialed down. And I'm like, you guys have the physical energy management dialed. The emotional, mental, and spiritual, they're like, absolutely not. That is so uncomfortable for me. And I also went on this like adventure experience with these 3 other women. And the whole time I was like, you guys are just addicted to type 2 fun. Like, you love the adrenaline rush, right? But the second we're talking about feelings, emotions, relationships, like what your soul is craving, you just lock up. And to me, was so wild. It was like, you'd rather jump out of a plane than sit here and just have a vulnerable conversation with me.
Oh, 100%. It's a lot more scary. It's a lot more scary for them. I mean, it's outright terrifying. It feels wrong. Just like jumping out of a perfectly good airplane might feel wrong to someone else. Quite literally, sitting down and being vulnerable about your feelings can feel wrong to you. But you know cognitively that it isn't. You know cognitively that you can't expand beyond your current horizons, your current relationships, your current experience of the world, until you add this incredibly powerful element to it. Talk about the thrill of that level of vulnerability. Talk about the excitement of being on the edge of the abyss of your heart and taking a plunge intelligently, thoughtfully. And if your heart gets broken, you'll recover from that too, just like a punch in the face, because you're strong and you will get past it. But if you don't get in the ring, man, you're never going to experience it. So you got to get in the ring, whatever the ring is for you. You got to get in the ring.
Life will give you contrast. It's going to show you where you have growth opportunities. And I love the work that you are putting out into the world and the work that you do, because it's a life skill and nobody talks about it typically until they're in a crisis state. Like, nobody seeks it out until they're in a crisis state. But that's all we're craving is connection and health and vitality and relationships and all the things. But it's so much easier to seek out external validation of like how much is in your bank account, how much is this, how much is that, and goals and all the, I don't want to call them masculine traits, but the physical manifestation of the things.
Right.
And this is so beautiful. So I'm curious what you have noticed when you're doing this work, um, teaching people the more stoic empathy when it comes to team management, when it comes to like what's on the other side of this. Let's say I've quote unquote mastered it, where it's not like something to master. I know we're constantly co-creating on a daily basis, but what is the
Mhm.
possibility when we infuse this into our lives?
Yeah. So the reality is that Stoic empathy is not too dissimilar from meditation or yoga. It
Mm-hmm.
is a path that you can undertake in order to strengthen and build the person that you are. And every day is a practice. But if you have 10,000 hours of meditation under your belt, your brain physically looks different. It's one of the things I talk about in the book. Your brain not only is younger and healthier, but it is also more capable. It is sharper. It experiences less decay. As a result, your nervous system is healthier. Your body is healthier. You can live longer. And most importantly, Heather, no matter how long you are in this world, in this way of form of life, right? The ultimate goal, the ultimate why, the ultimate place to be is really as close as you can to who it is you want to be. That is wisdom. Showing up in a situation where, despite the discomfort, forget discomfort, despite the rage, despite the anger, despite the pain, the fear, the anxiety, heck, the jealousy, you show up as the person you think you should be in that moment, such that your
Mm-hmm.
values and your wisdom are aligning with your actions and your speech and the way you make the people around you feel and the way you relate to those you have relationships with. That is the ultimate goal, right? And the thing is, it's not really a thing that you become. It's a process of becoming. And
Right.
and every day you add another layer and another level, and you become closer and closer to who it is you want, not who I want you to be, right? Not who any political leader wants you to be, but who you want to be, because you have deemed it so. And not 10 years ago you, 20 years ago you, today you, which by the way, it could be very different than yesterday you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the ultimate goal, is to get there. And these are the practices that'll get you there.
Thank you. Tell us where we can find more of you, Cher, and your book and all the things that you have going on.
Well, you can go to stoicempathy.com. You can buy the book at any place where books are sold. If you are one of my dear Canadian friends, you can buy it at any Indigo. You can request it from your local bookstore. And if you're in the States and want to go to a Barnes and Noble or your neighborhood bookstore, support local, yay. Also, if you just want to click a button on Amazon and have it delivered to your door the next day, I am not going to judge you. I feel like I have personally made half of Jeff Bezos's money with the number of Amazon purchases I have engaged in. So you can really find it anywhere. I'd say start with that. I'm also on Instagram at Cher_Kruse and on LinkedIn at Shermin Kruse.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being here and having the dedication to the perseverance to continue to share this message with the world.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.